All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond Podcast. And this is episode 132 and counting. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Bachata Radio, where you can listen to this interview in high quality. As well, we're available on Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts, and other streaming platforms. And you just saw an amazing performance from one of our special guests tonight, or the special guest tonight, I would say. And we have all the way from the Connecticut area, the one and only Jonathan Borges.
Hey, what's up, man?
Man, my brother, honestly, I love that routine so much. The reason is because every person I've seen perform that routine, I understand is that the positioning always has to be on key. And I mean by that, the formations. I love whoever did that video really captured the essence of the movements, of the formation changes, and really seeing that time and effort you guys have put in. But most of all, man, Jonathan, it is amazing to have you on this platform today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Diamond, man. I've been checking out your episodes since you first started, and I can't believe you're already at 131. It feels like you were just at episode less than 10 before.
And for me as well, as I talk to you, many others, that the reason I created this platform was because too many artists that I knew were leaving the scene and not having their stories told. And for me, I think it was really important to have a place, a platform, a safe haven, you might say, that artists can come to, feel comfortable about talking about their history, their stories, before Hollywood and the industry can get to it, or it may never be told. So for me, having you on is important because talking about your success is one thing, but also detailing how important it is, how you are as a human being, is more even gratifying. And, that's why really I love having artists like you on.
Thank you again, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and for me and you as well talked, we've danced in the same circles. Us being fans of the one and only CT SALSA FEST,
Yeah, yeah.
ran by Lewis and Luz, and realizing especially how important those places were every year, that we were anticipating going to events, going to socials, meeting people our age who shared the same love, going to the same socials and partying till 6 a.m. like the adults. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's a beautiful thing seeing over the years that, hey, many of us have grown, started from kids groups, even graduating and going into teams, and now into pro teams like Yamulee, like you're in. And for me, it's really inspiring seeing artists that I've seen grown over the years and now have come to this point in their career. And for me, I think this is just another catapulting step towards stardom. I think you're a really special artist. From your early days in Latin rhythms that we'll talk about, of course, until now with Yamulee, and also further beyond. And, for me, as I talk to you, as understanding who Jonathan is on the stage is just as important understanding Jonathan off the stage. So as I start every episode, I would love for you to kind of answer this question. It goes like this. Jonathan, who is Jonathan before dance?
Who is Jonathan before dance? All right. So I would say dancing, it's hard to say who I was before that, right? Because I've always liked to dance, like in general. Whether it was just at family parties, or what I used to do a lot was like copy music videos, like Usher was my boy back in the day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I used to always like kind of copy dances or whatever. And so I've always, I guess, had that thing for dance, but I actually didn't know it, like how much I loved it. And but besides that, if I took that out the equation, sports my whole life since I can remember, baseball and basketball mostly. And that led me all the way, taught me a lot, discipline, hard work, which I feel like that ended up playing a factor later when I started dancing, like around 15 or 14, that I've been playing sports the whole life. So I feel like I liked learning. I liked working in a group environment. You know what I mean? I like that part of it. So dancing eventually took over, but I would say before dancing, sports for sure, and video games too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we'll even get into that too. And I think it's important when I ask that question, because I want people to understand that just as much as they see you performing, it's also important understanding there's a life before that. There's a life around that. It's not just, I mean, don't get me wrong, most artists that I know are dedicated to dance, but there's always something that usually is something that the person likes other than dance. Video games, you like sports, and you've grown up in it, you've grown in it. And I think the discipline factor, if I can say,
for sure,
has played a role, because like you said, in sports, of course, it's about having fun, but there's an aspect of discipline and fundamentals that come into play. And, for me now, realizing with you that, you growing up in Connecticut, and what was that like, with the sports? Was it more of like you said, baseball and basketball? When did, like you said, in age of 15, when did dance kind of in the formal way and kind of the instructional way, how did that come about?
Yeah, so sports, I think that was just like a normal thing. My dad likes sports; he's a sports guy, so that I don't really remember not liking it or loving it. Little league and all that stuff, like since young. So that was just kind of like the thing to do during the seasons. But with dance, I got into it. Well, first I would say I was a part of somebody's quinceañera, right?
That's how it starts.
Yeah, I was a part of somebody's quinceañera, and the person that taught the dance was from Latin rhythm, and she was also in the quinceañera, and she just taught the basics. And I remember I'm always gonna remember my first song I like formally danced to was the Juliana by DLG. Juliana, que mala eres.
Yeah.
Que mala eres, Juliana. Yeah. So that was like the first one, and that was on one. Connecticut at that time was, and still is mostly dominant on one. So that was my first like little introduction into it. But there was somebody in the quinceañera that danced that Latin rhythm, and that ended up being my girlfriend. and she convinced me to go.
It always starts over a woman, right?
Always, man, always.
I mean,
Everybody's story has something to do with the girl.
and something you just said earlier as well, starting in quinceañeras. I have heard that from many past guests that they've started in kind of being in a quinceañera or forced into a quinceañera, and then kind
Yeah.
of that piques the interest. And like you said, your girlfriend, who now, before kind of introduced you to that. So what was it like, going from the quinceañera into now your first dance classes? What were those moments like for you?
I remember being like being able to learn quickly. I think that's always
Yeah.
been like a skill of mine, is that I can learn pretty quickly or imitate or mimic quickly.
Mhm.
But I do remember in my beginner class, like someone teaching me how to, really do a cross body lead the right way. So I
Mm.
really have memories of like my first like classes, and my even though that was like 15 years ago, like I can still remember those times in class. And then the instructor asked if I wanted to be a part of their like kids team or whatever.
Mhm.
And then that's how I got introduced to the group stuff. And then the CT SALSA Fest, I was kind of like, whoa, like
Yeah.
what the heck is going on here? So my first CT SALSA Fest was actually the second one they had.
Wow. But still,
Yeah,
that's so many years ago, and many
yeah,
people would even remember. I remember those early times.
yeah, for sure. But I think that's that kind of environment, like you said, that's almost like the only Congress, or the few ones that have like partying for adults and for
Mm.
younger kids, man. I remember the kids downstairs, we used to eat, like you said, get it in and all night, just like the adults would. And just seeing that many kids my age, like liking the same thing, kind of
Yeah.
like kept my interest going, because sometimes with dance, uh, it's not that, let's say, like sports is easy to sell to a guy or to a boy, but dance, it might be harder to sell to them or get them to get into it.
Mm. Yeah,
From
no,
what I think, yeah.
no, I understand, because if you don't see many people your age in that same field, sometimes it can kind of push you away. But realize
Yeah.
you got boys, you got men, male and females there, your ages. And I mean, of course, I hear a lot of artists say the same thing. And some of them don't have that luxury, because a lot of artists that I met started in their mid 20s, early 20s. And a lot of us were able to have that focus of doing it earlier, having that experience, gaining those relationships and friendships with people. Like, nothing's better than coming from New York, wanting to go to CT Salsa Fest, of course, to perform, but then catch up with the people that live over there, because that one weekend we built a friendship and, cheered each other on while performing. And I think that's really what was special. And for me, learning about your start at Latin Rhythms, understanding, there are many schools in Connecticut. When you're coming from New York, where the schools are endless, you're kind of figuring out what other scenes there are. Of course, there's Philly, there's Boston, there's Jersey, but then of course Connecticut. Like you said, On One was heavy, was the main thing, and it kind of still is, like you said. So, what were those moments like now? You're in Latin Rhythms, you're training, now you're getting to a performing level now. So how was those moments like for you, going from the novice to now performing in front of people?
Um, I I felt like I was able to adapt pretty good with the performing.
Mhm.
Uh, I've always felt like the pre-show kind of jitters and the butterflies that people experience, but
Mhm.
uh, not too much stage fright. Just nervousness or adrenaline, I would say. But what was kind of cool that I always say about Latin Rhythm is that I spent a lot of time there before I actually made my way to New York to get some
Mm.
training. Was that my first instructor's name was Yvette Cabrera. She actually started the CT Salsa Fest with Lou, but then they worked out other deals
Yeah.
to have just Lou run it. But she taught me really how to like enjoy myself dancing, like
Mm.
the real essence, and so she was teaching me the routines, but like she would motivate me to really feel the music and try to, you know, really get us to dance and not only just do the steps. So even if, you know, we weren't you know, have as high of as a level of, let's say, like New York the studios generally have, I feel like one thing she taught me was really how to dance, or how to how to dance and how to feel it and really feel the essence for it. So as far as performing, the main stage, like you said, was always CT SALSA FEST. And then one year, she wanted to take us to, we've done New York a few times when they were having they also had the kids shows over there.
Absolutely.
And then, one year we went to Miami, and I think that's when I was like, okay, I never traveled outside of like the tri-state area, and I really saw or began to do research on how big it was, the dance, because I thought it was just kind of like a hobby, you know, we do a couple shows here and there, tri-state area thing, but I didn't realize how big the salsa scene was. So that was my early introductions to that.
And that's amazing to hear, because I've heard that once before, that, you know, when you're kind of confined to your area and your limits, and then you kind of go elsewhere and you see a whole nother world, and that right there is a turning point. That's like, okay, all right, I can travel now and I can have fun. I mean, why not? For some people it might scare them away, but like you said, your initial phases of going to the CT SALSA Fest, which brought people from the tri-state, but also elsewhere, coming for a whole weekend, everybody's together. And now just soaking in all that knowledge from the classes, watching the shows. I mean, hey, it's a lot. And now, like you said, going to Miami was kind of that tipping point for you. And it's interesting that you talk about Latin rhythms, because I have a video here, an old classic video. I believe
Play it.
the routine was, I think, had a yellow, you know, stripe in it, little colors here and there. I think you remember that one.
Yeah.
All right.
I do remember that one. Yep.
All right, everyone, let's check this out, and we'll be right back.
That's
Man,
good stuff, man.
dude, like, listen, I mean, that was a throwback, but for me watching that,
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't, I don't even think you noticed. I think 2015, maybe, I actually performed that same song at CT SALSA FEST. Oyelo is one of the hardest songs. Like, it just keeps going and going and going and going and just builds up. And for me, seeing one, the endurance of you guys,
Yo,
because
for
those
real.
songs gas you out. But second, to have you guys be on timing. Like, you know what? When I mean by that, people just think it's so simple, but it's so hard to stay on time for some people with a song that long, so complex, with all that partner work. Like, you guys are teenagers doing routines that a lot of pros aren't able to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that like you said, like that was in the era of like you would do the whole song. Like there was no cutting the
Yes.
music. Like that's how it was before.
Oh my God, man. It's
So you had to, if the song was 4.5 minutes, you was dancing 4.5 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I think that built that, that endurance in you because, again, I mean, kind of going from start to finish and going full out, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, as we were watching it privately, we're like really in it. We're looking at everything and it's like it brings you back. Because for me to see those many years ago of where you started to where you are now, as I say a lot on this podcast, it makes sense. Everything now makes sense. To see the education that Yvette Cabrera gave you. And shout out to the Yvettes because my aunt and my mom are named Yvette.
Hey,
Just
shout out to
yeah,
Yvette.
shout out to the Yvettes. For me, what I appreciate is to see the teachings that you've learned from her translating as you're getting older. Because we understand we are representations of the people that taught before us. We
Always.
understand. So it's different if you're in a school that the teaching isn't as a high caliber and you come to a city like New York to train and they can look at you and say, hey, yeah, who you being trained by? Because that's how it is a lot of times. And to see just from an early age how really advanced you were. But most of all, you really had fun. Hey, don't get me wrong, the
Always.
video quality wasn't the greatest, but I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
I could see the smiles and most of all, just the passion, the love that you have for it. And that's really important. For me, a question I have for you before we kind of go into later and further times is watching that video. What were those feelings like for you?
Um, I'm a fan of watching like people. Some people wince away from those old videos and stuff
Mhm.
because they feel like they were so long ago and they're not as good as they are now or what they know now. But I see that and it puts a smile in my face because like you said, the passion is there. The quality can't see with really that much, but I remember having those were like one of the most fun
Mhm.
times that I've had, and times that I didn't have. I felt like less pressure, you know, as versus as I grew more and continued to grow. I feel like sometimes, or just in general, I feel like people can lose the essence once they get
Mm.
to a certain level, because they're so good that
Yeah,
it's almost they forget the true feeling or the first feeling. So I try to keep a little bit of that. Technique is awesome, but that's the essence is where it's at.
absolutely. I mean, so well said. Because again, it's not as easy as just going to training and learning some choreographies. If you can't translate the essence and the power and the passion on the stage, it means nothing. For me, it's like I enjoy watching someone go full out, start to finish, and it doesn't even have to be advanced, quote unquote, steps.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
give it your all rather than a professional team. And I've seen a professional team just because they're a pro team and they're headlining and closing. You look at it, and just in my opinion, I've seen it. I'm not flattered. I'm not interested because I can tell when that person or that group has lost that passion. And now it's a job. And now it's like, hey, just start. I'm just doing me. And I just have to be honest. Like for me, seeing, I think the luxury that people like me and you have had for many years, we started younger in a sense that we had a scene for us individuals for our ages.
yeah.
We were around the adults, but at times we were around people our age. And when it came to social dancing, we're social dancing with everyone. we're getting to know everybody. So as you get older, the focus of social dancing is being social. So I mean, you've gotten that experience in as you're younger. So a question now that I have is, after Latin Rhythms, seeing your journey down the road, I saw that you were also a part of Eddie Torres Jr.'s project that you guys had performed at the Madison Square Garden event. So can you kind of
Yeah.
tell us a little more about that? Because I remember seeing that, and I was like, man, Eddie's great, but this guy right here is hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah. So there got to a point where I was at Latin Rhythm, and the hunger for more
Mhm.
was starting to really really kick in. At that time, uh, the way I was introduced to New York, first I would say is I went to a Jimmy Anton social on a
Mm.
Sunday, and prior to that I've taken like a lesson or two.
Mhm.
Somebody from New York. His guy was name was Jamal. Came and taught an Antu lesson. I took maybe a lesson or two with them, and then we all went to Jimmy Anton's, and I was going in there only dancing on one, but practicing on two. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it my
Mhm.
mission. And those Jimmy Anton days, that little sweat box.
Oh yeah.
Like that was one of the events where I'm like, man, people are coming here straight to dance. Like
Oh yeah.
they're coming in here in gym clothes and changing multiple times because they're here to dance. You know what I mean? There's no show or dress up
Yeah.
behind it. So I practice all I practice. I try to. I lost timing the whole night, but towards the end of the night, I started feeling it, and
Mhm.
I remember saying like, okay, like I'm starting to feel like the Antu rhythm or the beat. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because on one, or just a habit. I don't know if you are familiar with either or, but once you dancing on one for so long, when you try to convert timings for the first time, you're like, man, this is
Yeah.
out of feeling. So yeah, so the hunger for more started kicking in after that. I'm like, okay, I gotta really learn this and really take my time and dedicate to it. So I had a friend, his name is Rob Gracia, Rob Hollywood. He also
Mhm.
danced with Yamulee for a while.
Mhm.
And we all grew up in the same CT SALSA Fest,
Yeah.
all of us as kids. And I met him there actually, and we reconnected, and he came to a social in Connecticut, and he was asking, what was I up to dance wise, and I told him, I was like, well, I want to go train in New York, but I'm not really, familiar. I don't really have contacts like that to get these advice from. So I was thinking, of all the big names, Santo Rico, Yamulee, Zapphire. At that point, I had just started,
Mhm.
was been around for a year or two, so they were kind of cool. So those were like the only companies really that I knew to go to.
Yeah.
And he told me, he was like, yo, I've been taking classes with Eddie Jr. You should come through. And he told me that on a Friday. The class
Mhm.
was on that same Tuesday. I went right away. I was like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for, right? And then I took my first class with Eddie Jr. and I was like, man, you can't duplicate this feeling. You can only find it here. So just driving into Manhattan,
Mhm.
seeing the lights, it always makes you feel like you something or going to be something when you pull up. For me, every time I
Yeah.
pull up to Times Square, Manhattan, I'm like, man, this is it. So just that whole experience, took class with him or whatever, and I was like, man, this is where it's at. And then kept taking class with him, and then he said he had a project coming up, and he had auditions for it, and it was for the Madison Square Garden event, but he didn't say it was for the Madison Square Garden event. He just said that he had auditions for something. So I showed up to it, and I was excited. The audition went well. I felt like I made a good impression. It was my first kind of like audition of that type of sort. And he's like, okay, I'll see, basically gave me the okay to come back and practice again. And I was super excited. And I go outside, and my car's gone.
Oh my lord.
My car is gone.
Wait, you mean like Toad, or you mean like?
Towed.
Oh, okay. I
No, it was
was like,
towed.
damn.
Man, I was at my highest point, being ecstatic of him giving me the okay to be a part of his project. To all the way down of like, yo, where the heck is my car? At that point, I didn't know if, stealing cars was a thing.
Yeah.
I felt like the parking was a good spot, but I later learned that was my first like
Welcome to
lesson.
New York.
Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. You can
Man,
live your dream in one corner and then turn the corner and then,
and lose it all.
and lose it all.
I mean,
So I had to walk all the way down to the tow place, and
wow.
looking back at it now, it was funny, but at the time, it was
I mean,
a little, yeah.
I mean, your heart was made and broken at the same, like in the same hour.
Same hour, literally.
Hey, I mean, but also you getting that opportunity to train with Eddie Torres Jr. to eventually do that event, which was at the Madison Square Garden. When you initially found out it was at Madison Square Garden, what were those feelings like?
Oh man, I was like, it's gonna be the biggest stage, you know what I mean? Like the mecca, of just the arenas period, So I was like super excited and grateful, even for Tito. It was with Tito Puente Jr. So just having that kind of bloodline, it felt special to be a part of, because Eddie's dad worked with Tito Puente's dad, Junior's dad. Then they it felt like a good special moment. So I was glad to be a part of it.
Man, absolutely. Having that opportunity, like you said, having your friend Rob introduce you to that, Rob being a part of Yamulee at one point, but now him introducing you, you having that opportunity, you making that audition, the common denominator and all of your experiences has been you. So you've been able to help you succeed, which is great to see, instead of just relying on others, because that's so easy to do for so many people. But we've learned in this industry, you have to do it yourself. You've got to really put that work in, put the time in. So now my question to you is, you've done your work with Eddie Torres Jr., you've done your work with Latin Rhythms. What was it like initially for you now going into Yamulee and training there?
So the path after Eddie, because I was training for like 2 years, close to 2 years, taking class before and after Madison Square Garden. And what I really felt like I said, with Latin Rhythm, she taught me the essence, how to have fun, not be scared of dancing. Dancing's, a feeling. And then what I felt like Eddie taught me how to do was how to express myself within that, and, the dancing mambo felt really like, I was like, man, I didn't know I can express myself like that within these Suzy Q's or these shines. Like, I didn't know I can have, these different range of motions or ideas, that I can incorporate in dance, besides just sticking to the normal shines that we all learn as, beginners all the way to intermediate or advanced dancers. So he kind of taught me the foundation, because I also, even though I was at an advanced level or close to it at that level, I was still taking his advanced beginner class, because, like I said, the hunger for more and really to learn properly took over. And, so I was taking both classes, like, even though I felt like the advanced beginner was more easier, never wanted to stop learning. But I would say he taught me how to express myself, how to be myself within salsa also. But one thing I was also, the hunger for more strikes again. I was like, man, I want some hardcore like training, like some group stuff. And he works mostly alone, so it's hard for him to really have a lot of things going on. So not like these other dance companies where they'll have multiple instructors or people that can help you. So I was still looking for the team kind of vibe. And Rob being from Yamulee, he told me, he was like, well, there's Yamulee. I'm like, it wasn't my top of the list, because I felt like it was almost a contrast of what I was doing with Eddie, right? And to be honest, and I always say this, that at first the Yamulee style did not appeal to me. I remember in the CT SALSA FEST early, like absolutely amazed, and like, wow, this is great. But at that time, I was dancing for having fun, and to me, I wasn't knowledgeable enough to know that they were having fun with having so much technique.
Yeah.
So at first I didn't see it. I'm like, okay, now they're executing, but I'm just seeing spins.
Yeah.
But it's not until I actually took my first class at Yamulee that when I realized that they were just on a whole nother level of
Yeah.
just within the dance. I was like, okay, yeah, nah, this is where it's at. This is what I've been kind of looking for, and Osmar having the mind that he has up until this day. I'll be there 4 years in October, and up until this day, he'll come out with some stuff that I'm like, how is this man thinking of this?
Yeah, like
How is he thinking of this?
I mean, and you said it so genuine because what you said really mattered was, hey, you saw all of this technique on stage and you wondered how could they have fun? Because we see so many times routines that really are having fun. I mean, is there a leveled balance of fun, but also technique and fundamentals? And then, like you said, it took you going there to really understand it. Because before that, you're more foreign to it. You just see a performance here and there, but you actually going to the studio and training. And like you said, 4 years later, seeing how far you've come. And with Osmal, for me, Osmal is not just a legend, he's a pioneer, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
There's many artists from years past that I have met in contact with, stay in contact, that I consider pioneers. There were certain artists that revolutionized our dancing world or scene, how we perceived it. Because you also understand, and this is my opinion, in CT SALSA Fest, that was right before near Congress, where you got to see the talent that was nearby and you got to understand what people are looking for. And what I mean by that, you talked about it earlier, the turns, the dips, the tricks. There was a period of time where that was king, where that was every routine we saw. If it didn't have any of that, we didn't know we were going to give you that ovation or that applause you wanted.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that was good, but also I think bad. I think people just had to be genuine because then I started seeing teams that tried to emulate the team right before then. And people realized after a while, that's not how you guys really operate. I could understand trying something new, but there's a difference between, flattery and straight copy. And I
Yeah.
mean, but for me, seeing how far you've come, like you said, from your first initial years at Yamulee, and thanking Rob for that opportunity of pushing you to do it because he saw something in you. And 4 years later, dude, I mean, I remember honestly, and I'm transitioning now to kind of 2020, and even now is last year during the pandemic, seeing videos of you, people like Renee, Emiliano, and many others, Barbara, seeing Scarlett, Anna, the list goes on from Yamulee. For me, it was really amazing and grateful and motivating because 2020 was very hard for many of us. And it was like we wanted to see something that was uplifting, that was giving us hope. And, for me, seeing artists like yourselves that were putting yourself out there when in reality, a lot of artists are more introverted. And now when the camera's solely focused on you or your partner, that's where the individuality comes in. And, for me, a question I have is, of course, going through the years and, now really being a part of the team, of course, and performing alongside people like Osmal, Emiliano, Renee, and others, what were those moments like of, from just training to now performing within the teams?
Yeah. So I had my mind set. Once I took my first class, I was like, I'm gonna join this team. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna figure out, how these people are doing this, and I can't figure it out just yet, right? So I talked to Osmar. I already had the plug-in with Rob, and Rob suggested that I get moved to the Bahari team first instead of doing the student Guadalquiteng team. And he was like, yo, I vouch for him, like, this guy, whatever. And I told Osmar, I was like, I work hard. There's something, that I have my mind set up, 100%. If you give me the opportunity, I understand, or I'll be grateful, right? And he was like, I'll give you the opportunity, but just to let you know, like, if you can't do it, you're gonna have to go on the student team. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm totally. I'm totally fine with that. Um, I'm still gonna want to be here no matter what.
Yeah.
So I was willing to take that step back. Well, what I thought would be a step back to do the student team, just to ultimately achieve my goal. But join the Bahari practices. I remember there was a lot of things that I was just habits I had to break. And Yamulee prides herself on technique for sure. So that's pretty much what I had to learn with them, is how to properly step all my counts out, how to lead, all the little tricks and tips that go along with it, was adjustment, because I felt like Mambo was dancing a little bit more free, or a little bit open, a little bit more grooviness, versus the Yamulee technique. There's a lot of things happening in one bar, so you gotta be on point. So
That's true.
yeah, I got addicted to that feeling, man. That training was it, man. And really, like I said, I always say the three major things that played a factor in my journey was the first, the essence, the second, first with essence with Eddie, or with Latin rhythm and Yvette. The second was expression, and was with Eddie Jr. And then thirdly was technique and just straight up knowledge with Yamulee. And I feel like those were the three main things that I got from each path that I took. You know what I mean? So all the way up until performing, to answer your question, I remember my first performance with Osmar, and I was standing behind him, and to me, he's kind of infamous for having that bald head. You know what I mean? Yeah. So at least at my time, not that there's not other bald salseros, but I remember that was one of the things when I was young, like the bald guy from Yamulee. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know his name. So when I finally got on stage with him, I was like, man, I'm behind the bald guy from Yamulee. Like, I still had that feeling, like, because I'm always a fan. A fan first. So that admiration is always going to be there, and that respect as a instructor, or just for all these artists in general. You know what I mean? There's a lot of admiration that I have for a lot of people, and to perform alongside legends is, man, I feel blessed, man. And I'm glad that I've had people in my journey, like the first girlfriend that I had that introduced me to salsa, Rob, that kind of introduced me to New York, and then I kept pushing on, even though these people either stopped, or I don't have connection with them anymore. I kept going. So I'm always grateful for those moments like that. So now it's Osmar, I see him as definitely more of a family type. 4 years is hard to go 5 days a week, sometimes 6 hours a day. Is hard to go without feeling connection for the people that you dance with and stuff. So they're definitely family now.
Absolutely. I mean, having that family aspect is important, because from start to finish, you're with those people on stage, and every turn, every transition, every footwork, every foot placement, every formation change is important, because, like you said, Osmal is known for helping create some of the most unique patterns and, inversions, turning a turn and going the opposite way of what you think you should go to. And I love that. And having artists like you and many others now promoting the brand themselves, besides just Osmal, but having you guys is so important. Seeing how far Yamulee has grown and keeps growing is beautiful. And now my last question before we get to my amazing segment that I love, have called the randoms, is, from everything you've been able to experience throughout your years of dancing, culminating now, we're hitting 2021, things are getting back to a sense of normalcy, and things are opening up more, events are happening. What do you see as your future? in this dancing?
My future in this dancing. I would say right now my main focus is to continue trying to grow as much as I can. Right. I think with a lot of artists, my personal opinion, some people jump out too early. And maybe they were in a good situation before, but they jump out too early and then they kind of lose steam. So that's kind of always been something that's back in the back of my mind. So I'm really I want to make sure that I know as much as I can before I move on to a journey that involves just me dancing, and whether it's with a pair, a team, own company. I definitely see myself as trying to make my path here. I feel like I've had a pretty unique path, combining some of the things I've learned from the Mambo style, Eddie, Yamulee style. Up until this point, not a lot of people have, took that same time to train with both. So I feel like I have something that I can play with, mixed with things that I keep on creating every week at Yamulee that comes from me, comes from the essence that I originally learned. So I'm trying to carve my path and make myself, a staple in the game as for years to come. Taking my time, I feel like is working for me. Yamulee right now is, is home. That's where I want to be. That's where I see myself in the near future, for sure, for a while, because learning so much with Osmar, again, being a part of everybody, that level of talent, that grind, is addicting.
Yeah.
People see the schedule and they say like, man, I don't know how you can do it 5 times a week, but once you're in it, it's once you're in it, you're in it. So at this point, kind of like touching back a little bit what you said in 2020 and 2021, I realized the power even more of social media and what you can do for you. And that I've always been afraid to put my work out there. So that's kind of been my focus, is trying to put my work out there, not being so hard on myself, and just sharing what I like to do, or how I like to feel within dance with everybody. So you're definitely gonna be seeing more of me, man.
I mean, absolutely. I definitely look forward to it. And for me, again, this is that opportunity for me to give you your flowers now, because understanding, like you said, 5-6 days a week, 5 to 6 hours plus for 4+ years and counting, that's dedication. That's a lot of private events, family events missed, times out with friends maybe miss sometimes, and we understand the toll it takes. But for me, it's about celebrating you and what you've been able to do so far, but knowing that you have so much more to do. And now it helps us transition to the last segment that I have, called the randoms. So, Jonathan, all I need to know is when you are ready.
Let's get it.
All right, number one,
Yeah.
Who is your favorite basketball team?
Celtics.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah. All right. Second question. You're at a Congress right now. You could only have one performing artist to watch. Who is it?
Tito Rodriguez.
And in that same question, what about, we're talking about a performing team now.
Oh, performing team?
Mm-hmm.
Do I gotta exclude my own team?
You can, yes, you would have to exclude your own team.
New York Movement.
Oh, I love that answer.
Yeah.
I love that answer. All right. Number 3 is, if you could have one meal right now, what would it be?
Not in all right. So I'm trying to be good as of lately, but man, my go-to is white rice and beans with pork chops, man. That chuleta, bro, and tostones. That's the go-to.
Damn, that's you get me hungry right now. I'm about to finish this interview quick.
Word.
All right, next question. This comes from Migo Nene, and they say, how does it feel to be the king of CT's salsa scene?
Wow.
Hey,
man,
I mean,
it's too small. I gotta expand my territory. I gotta be the king of farther.
Oh, okay. I like that answer. I like that. All right. Right now, if you could dance with one follow right now at a social, who is it?
Anna, that's my favorite person to dance with right now,
Big
for
shout
sure.
out to Anna. I mean, I love the
Ana
way
Garcia, yep,
I think she's all the way from Spain.
from Spain, yep.
Yes. I mean, her work is amazing, especially the videos you guys do. I mean, in 30 seconds to a minute, you guys get so much done. You have so much technique and fundamentals, but the most important thing, you guys have fun. And that's something I really love. Next question is right now, if someone was to come to Yamulee, what is the small piece of advice you would give them? If they were rushing to a class and they said, "Hey, could you tell me what to expect? What can you tell me before I do this?" What would you tell them?
If I had to tell somebody to advice for if there was their first Yamulee class,
Yeah.
I would definitely say it's just keep counting. Just keep
Mm,
counting. Yep.
I know
Learn the
exactly what
counts.
you mean.
Yep. Keep counting, man. And there's so many things that run through my mind, but it has to be the counting. That's the most important.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Next question is, how did you get the nickname Googie?
Oh yeah, I knew that was gonna come up.
Of course, of
So
course.
yeah, Googie be dancing, man. So the name Googie came from I don't remember how I got it. My mom tells me the story. She basically tells me that when she would try to interact with me and say when you tell kids to say say mama, say papa, say dada, say
Yeah.
something, I'll just be like Googie, right? So she'll be like Googie, and then apparently I'll just get excited like that I like
Yeah.
that. And she'll be like Googie, and I'll just be excited like yeah. So she was like, well, I'm gonna call this little boy Googie
Yeah.
then if he likes being called that. So that's honestly how I got the name. So I've always kept that like as a private name.
Hmm.
Like I felt embarrassed before when I was younger, like, oh, I don't want nobody calling me Googie, but it turns out that people I guess like when you're yourself. So
I mean, hey, if you
and
got to
then
bring out, yeah,
the people used to always say like well, now that especially at Yamulee, they'd be like, yo, you know, where the hell Googie been at? Where he been at? He just, he Googie be dancing, like, whatever. So that's how I really got my Instagram handle to, that's always, what I was doing. So Googie be dancing. That's how I got the Instagram handle too.
wow, okay, I like that little side story for sure. All right, next question is, what is one of your most embarrassing dance moments?
Embarrassing dance moments. Whew. Um, I I remember not at the first time that I went to the Miami Salsa Congress, but one of my last times there performing with Latin Rhythm. Um, there was a lot of conflict of scheduling
Mhm.
with our team and how much we can practice before we can go. So basically, I forget what year it was. It was before 2013, I want to say. But we went there, and I felt definitely like the show was not prepared. A
Yeah.
bunch of mistakes between everybody. So I would say that would be my embarrassing moment.
Okay. All right. Next question, second to last, is if you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Just one word about myself or about
One
dancing or
word,
just whatever.
just about you.
Um, if I could describe myself in one word, it would be growth.
Mm. And I
Growth.
knew you had to think about that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I love asking those questions. And this next question, my last question, gets a little bit more deeper is, Jonathan, how do you want to be remembered? When years from now, if you're not doing this in the same capacity you were and you've moved on, how do you want to be remembered?
In the dancing scene, you know, I would love for people just to see uh or try to understand what my life has taught me through my dance. or what kind of, I want them to get an idea of who I am through watching me dance. So they're not gonna just see the Susie Q's. They might just see like, how I express myself can be like, oh, this guy must like hip hop music, or he must like, I don't know, something like that, So being remembered as somebody that took the techniques from different people and made it his own while still maintaining the essence.
That's really special. And again, I'm glad that I can ask that question. It really helps me appreciate you even more as not just the artist, but the human being. Because again, we all may think about that question in one form or fashion, but when asked it, it makes you really think. And I'm glad that you could answer that. I thank you again for doing this segment. And now it helps us transition to our last segment or our closing segment. And for me, again, Jonathan, from start to finish, I've appreciated everything about your story, your experience, but most of all, your growth. That word you use to define yourself. And that is something that I hold true is I've seen your growth. I've seen your progression over the years and just seeing that, hey, this is just a starting point. This is not even the tipping point yet, in my opinion. And having this platform, I'm grateful to have artists like you on so you can tell your story. And last but not least, before we go, I'd love to know if you had any last few words for myself and the audience, but also contact info on how people can reach you and see what you're up to next.
Yeah, man. I want to thank you again for allowing me to be part of this interview, be a part of you also creating something that I think is legendary also, because, documentation is important these days, and not just, for Instagram videos, but, to see, to go back and have that on record and being like, this was this person back then and look where they are now.
Yeah.
And, there's a podcast that I like called The Drink Champs. And
of course, with Nori and DJ
yeah.
and of course.
Yeah. So Drink Champs has the same kind of message, like, give the people the flowers while they're still here. But you kind of took that and was like, okay, well, there's people that get flowers all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let me go out to some of the people that, are more local, basically, you're like you're looking out for not only the the big names, because you have some big names that are part of you, but you do a lot of local artists that maybe not people are familiar with, and that actually dedicated the same time. And, just because it's not, New York, doesn't mean that these people are not also artists that have been working for years and years and years. So, I appreciate that you do that. And just in general for the audience, I appreciate you guys checking in with me and Diamond. I hope you got to learn a little bit more about myself. And, if you ever want to see what I'm up to, mainly more active on Instagram, and that's at Googie Be Dancing. And the spelling is Guggie. That's Googie right there. And it's BE Dancing.
Absolutely, man. Everyone check out Jonathan on Instagram at Googie Be Dancing. That is Googie Be Dancing. And honestly, thank you all again for another great and special episode. I myself, Diamond Rivera, here with Jonathan Borges. And just to let you know, of course, things are getting back to normal. So again, we're taking this platform soon back to events. That means I'm doing the same thing here and I'm bringing it to you. You never know. I might see you at a Yamulee social.
Let's get it, man.
That out, talk to the people, interact with the people. Because again, this is a podcast for the people, by the people. And I definitely would love to interview Anna as well and hear her story. So I definitely want to see if we can work that out. But most of all, Jonathan, I appreciate you today. I know you're getting ready to go to rehearsal as we speak. I thank everyone for tuning in, who will tune in the future. It's been another special episode. This is episode 132 with Jonathan Borges out of CT. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, rest of your day, and stay safe. Peace.
Yeah.